Well, welcome back to this glorious homestead. Today we're going to take a tour of a local meat packing place and meet with Steve and his son, Cody Anderson. So they're going to give us a bunch of good information on what they do and how they do it and the ethical way they treat their animals. And I hope y'all really enjoyed today's show. So y'all stick around. All right, welcome back to the channel. I'm here with Mr. Anderson at Anderson's Meat in Hartsville, Tennessee, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the business and what he did or what he does and how he got started. Him and his dad started this business. So if you don't mind, tell us what you do.
Well, we started out, we're a family that raised cattle their whole life. Dad, there's 5 of us total. It's me and my mom, and then I'm the youngest of siblings, so I have...
That's a big family.
That's a big family. So I have an older sister, she's the middle child, and then an older brother too. And so I'm the youngest of 3, but we grew up on the cattle farm. My dad, we used to live in Difficult, Tennessee, and we moved to where my mother's family is at, which is on Plunkett's Creek on Highway 70. They moved down there, and my mother's father owned a big farm, and so my dad and my mom, when they got married, they bought some land off of them, and that's kind of where everything started. So
we slaughtered your own meat?
Well, we started out just in the cattle business, raising cattle and feeder calves and things like that. And of course, the kids, we got to have some goats along the way and some fun stuff like that. But that's kind of how it started. Dad was a cattle broker growing up, so he used to go to places and get a lot of phone calls during the day to ask what the market looked like and things like that. So, but that's kind of how it started. Is really just a farm. We didn't really ever look or really want to do any kind of meat processing facility or anything. I'm sure it was probably always in the back of his mind, but being a cowboy was kind of what he wanted to do. Right. So that's kind of what we all did growing up.
Every boy's dream.
Every boy's dream. Cowboy and Indian movies.
So how did you get into meat processing? At what stage of his life did he say, I'm going to do it?
I think when, it's kind of hard for farmers a lot of time you want to raise your own animal, you want to know where it's going to go,
right.
You want to do things a certain way. And I think maybe in the, maybe 2017, 16, somewhere around there is when the idea kind of started catching some fire. And I was actually active duty military. I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay, appreciate your service.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years, and I can remember him calling me, and he said, "Hey," because I'd already told him that I was getting out, and he said, "Hey, when you get out, would you be interested in being a butcher?" And I said, "A butcher?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm thinking about opening up a meat processing facility."
Yeah.
And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I've never thought about that, but I might be interested in doing something like that." So when I got out, I worked on my own for myself for a little while, and then when this thing kind of started catching some ground, he sent me to a couple of different places to kind of learn off some elderly people and then some guys closer to my age, and that's kind of how we started getting into this.
Just you and your dad?
Mostly. The whole family kind of started it. Yeah, Mom, she works here some, and my older sister and my brother, he's actually in law enforcement in Wilson County. But he handled a lot of the stuff at home. So, he was a cop, but he quit copping for a little while to actually help take care of the farm. And he would, they raised the cattle there at the house, and he would bring them here. So when we needed to put people on the schedule or had an open spot, he's the one that brought in the whole Hat Creek, I guess market.
Yeah.
And so that's what the name of our business is. My father and my brother primarily, but they run the Hat Creek business.
Okay. So you sell your own beef here.
Yeah.
And then you provide butchering services for other people.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I had some cows, or tell me what kind of, you do cows, sheep, and goats?
They do. So here at the processing facility, we do beef, we do hogs, we do sheep, and we do goats.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I had, a few sheep that I wanted to bring in, how's that process? How do you do that?
So the first thing we always ask people is it custom or is it USDA? And a lot of people don't know what that means, most of the general public. But all USDA means is that it is government inspected. And so that means that we have a USDA inspector that's on site full time. And when we built this facility, we had to put an office here for him.
Okay.
That's part. If you want to be USDA facility, they have to have their own space to be able to do things. So we put the office in there for him, and what that means is he's here every single day, and he is on the, in better terms, the harvest floor, but we just call it a kill floor. But he's on the kill floor, and he inspects that animal getting slaughtered, makes sure that it's humane, and then he's inspecting when they take and they skin everything out, that there's no hair on the carcass, and that there's no all the things that make sure that it's clean. And so that's USDA. So if you wanted to retail your meat, and pretty much what it ends up turning into is, if I cut a whole loin out of a beef and I wanted to sell an individual steak to somebody, anybody, the general public, it has to have approval from the government. It's got to have a USDA stamp on it, essentially. But if it's custom, that means that you're my neighbor. You say, hey, Cody, I want a beef from you. And I say, how do you want it cut? And you fill out your cut sheet, and I say, well, we can do it.
Okay.
And so that's not going to have labels on it to where every single package is weighed.
Okay.
That's right, and inspected.
Okay.
Now our process here, we do everything the exact same. It doesn't matter if our USDA inspector is here that day or not. We keep all of our. It's way easier for training when you're training your new staff. But we do everything the same here. No matter what. So.
Okay, so we'll fill out a sheet, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
what's on that? Can I?
Yeah, absolutely. I got one right here, actually. So, for example, this would be a beef cut sheet. And our beef cut sheet, I don't know if the camera can see it or not, but it starts out, you would fill out your information at the top, and it kind of tells you the different fees that we would charge based off of stuff.
Okay.
So for ours, it's a $50 kill fee for a whole beef, and we charge a $1 per pound on the hanging weight if it's custom. And if it's USDA, because we have to pay for more packaging and the labels and stuff like that, we charge $1.20. But you go down through there and you fill out, whether you want roast or different types of steaks, and if you want your variety meat or bones or all kinds of stuff. And then, the ground beef has obviously become a lot more popular, and you'll see that a lot in this industry. The bearded butchers on YouTube have become really popular here lately. But we will see in this industry, how the world changes on what they eat. Homesteaders are becoming a lot more popular,
right.
So you will see more whole loins because maybe they want to cut their own steaks. You'll see stuff like that when, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been, we want every single steak cut this way, or we want something cut out of the round a different way. So things become, when we first got into the industry, I remember Korean style ribs were a big thing. And now we don't cut a lot of those. I do probably 60 to 80 cut sheets a week, and I don't hardly ever do Korean style ribs anymore.
T-bone and prime rib, pretty.
T-bone is actually not as popular as you would think.
Oh, really?
We will get some cut. Now butchers love cutting it because they don't have to break anything down when they cut a T-bone. But T-bones have become a little bit less popular.
I love a T-bone.
I do too. And in New York, strips and fillets are a little bit more popular. So.
Well, not only does it bring peace of mind to know if you can raise your own animal and bring your own animal to you and you slaughter and process it, it gives the farmer or consumer peace of mind knowing.
That's one of the
because
biggest
they
things.
put all kinds of chemicals and stuff in our meat before it goes to Kroger, Foodland, wherever.
And that's a big thing too is you know where it comes from, and a lot of people, they want to support local farmers.
That's right.
That's a big thing. That's just like buying something from Walmart compared to buying something from a local grocery store. You may know the person that works there. You may go to church with him,
Right.
or whatever the case may be. And that's a big thing too is supporting your local farmers.
Yes, sir.
And so I'm all about stuff like that.
All right. Well, can we take a tour?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Let's go. All right. So this is where we start.
Yep.
Okay. So we bring the animal in here and just kind of tell the process of where they go from here.
Yeah, so they would, this is kind of our drop-off area. They pull their trailers in, there's a drive-through. This right here opens up, swings open. We have an awning right here for cover. And trailers are able to pull right through here and just stop their vehicles. We don't have a lot of backing up. Some small process facilities don't have that luxury, obviously because of money and other issues. But when we built it, we wanted to do it the right way. So you pull through, you park your trailer, open up the gates, and then, right to the left of us here, this swings open and we're able to unload the animals. And then we have different sections to be able to load animals. We keep the hogs in the same area. keep the cattle in the same area, and we try to separate them based off the producer if we can, and then we kind of run an inventory chute, and we have a weighing process that we do.
Okay. So the customer pulls up here, opens up the door, and gets fresh meat out the other end.
Yep.
That's the only thing you have to do.
That's right.
That sounds like a deal
That's
to
right.
me.
That's right. They would come in here and we unload them. And then obviously we have our different areas that we can put animals. You know, most of the time we're going to put beef and stuff in here, but we would unload our beef right here. And then depending on which one of these sections that we wanted to open up at the time, or which producer that it may be, you know, generally we kill 3 days a week. Well, we kill 4 days a week, but you know, about 10 head of cattle a day is what we try to do. We try to do 30 beef a week, but then one day we usually do a lot of hogs. So generally try to do 30 beef a week, but it don't always end up like that depending on cancellations.
Do you get a lot of sheep in this area?
Not as much as you would think. We get more USDA sheep than we do custom.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, it just depends. Sometimes it takes spells.
Okay.
But
Well, my wife has turned me on to Greek food.
Yeah.
And they eat a lot of sheep.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking sheep is probably my second favorite meat.
you know, I really like sheep. We when we very first opened up, we started doing what we call spinach feta patties, and I never really eat any sheep before.
I haven't either.
And I took some of them home, and man, let me tell you, we was a fan. We come back and got more. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we take right here. When we built this place, we put this type of.
I saw that.
Yeah, we put this type of block, and it's kind of a pain to clean. But what it does is it's slip proof, so it helps our cattle and stuff not slip and fall down or get hurt or anything like that. That's a big thing too. You know, anytime an animal is beat up or bruised or falls down, you know, it can bruise your meat, and we can see that once we get into our actual butcher room. We can see that.
Even though we're at a meat processing place, we take ethical care of the animal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love that.
You know, we don't want any high stress on the animal.
No.
We try to keep them as calm as we can. We keep water and stuff like that inside of the pens for them if they need it, especially on hot days and things like that. And so it's just like if, for example, if something breaks in our facility and we're not able to kill, let's say we had 10 head of cattle that day and we were only able to kill 8, you know, overnight we keep water and we bring feed in for the animals overnight. So it's not like they're sitting there starving the whole time.
Right.
So we try to take care of them, and then obviously we process them the next day.
All right.
We rotate through here though, bring them in. And this right here is like, this swings open. I'm not gonna do it right now because it's really, really loud, but it swings open. So once we run the animals in, we open this up, run them in, and it swings and closes. And then they go through our chute process here. And when they get up here to the very top, this is where we would weigh them out. Okay, so if you look right up there, they come in here, and if they'll hold still long enough, right, we write down their live weight, and this is where we give that information to the producer a lot of the times. They'll call us back and say, hey, what was the live weight on that animal? So this is where that process is done. As soon as we get over that, we run them in here, and then it's almost like a garage door. We open up these 2 panels here, this garage door opens up, and that actually runs into our kill chute. And so we do that, we open up this door. And this is what you would hear a lot of people call it a knock box. I just call it a chute because my whole life we grew up around cattle chutes. But this is kind of our knock box. So when they come in here, we try to keep them as calm as we can, obviously, but we're gonna lock them down. We've got a thing that will hold their head to keep them from moving around a lot. They're killed right here, and then once they're killed, we let them sit for just a few minutes, and then we'll hang them up on this big hoist right here. So we take this is where we'll hang them up. So we hook on their feet, we pull them up. This is what we call our blood tank. This has to get drained every so often, but this is where all the primary blood goes. So once we cut their throat, the blood drains out and we drain into this right here. We have a big blood tank outside. When it gets so full, there's a little meter that goes off. That calls the person to come pick up the blood, and then they come get the blood. They spread it on fields and all kinds of stuff to put iron into the soil. They would primarily drain right here. Once they do that, obviously we have to take the head off. Take the head off and put it on this right here. This is a cradle. My uncle actually made this plate of stuff for us. But we set the head right here, and a lot of beef tongue has become extremely popular here lately. So this is where we get the tongue and stuff out. Now we can't give, you'll have a lot of people that won't like cheeks and brain and stuff like that, and we can't do that here. The reason is because we pull a trigger. Okay, so when we shoot a gun, you know, they won't let us get certain things off of the head. But anyways, we take that, once we cut the head off, they'll take it, bring it up, and we lay it on this hoist right here. This is our skinning cradle. So our skinning cradle, this is where we lay it down. You know, when we very first got this thing, the legs were just like this tall. And so we had to add those things on the bottom because we're not all 5 foot tall, so it would kill your back. So we added those at the bottom, but rung this up a little bit, and this is where they skin the animal out. Once they get done skinning the animal out, it gets raised and it's put on our rail system, and that's where we cut it in half and do everything. So it's skinned out, it's gutted. This right here is where we gut everything out. This right here is the pressure of water actually makes this thing go up like hydraulics. We hook it up to a water hose right here. Because of that pressure, it'll raise up to it very heavy. So then it raises up, dump it into the barrel, and then obviously that's what we're using for barrel. Once we put it up here, it'll be hanging there, the skin out, it'll be hanging there, and we actually will wait till we put it on the rail, and then we cut it in half where it releases the hooks. And then they'll roll around with the trolley. They roll all the way around with this one. This is where one of our staff members inspects everything for us. So this is what we call the washing station. So they take, once that rolls around, we wash well actually we have to trim first. We'll trim any kind of hair, anything on that animal that's not supposed to be there. And so obviously the better that you get at skinning and things like that, the less of that process that you have. But they come around, we trim any kind of hair off of it that we need to. Once we do that, we wash it with cold water, cool down the carcass. We let it drain for just a little bit, and then we spray a 50-50 mix of water and vinegar on that animal carcass. That helps break down any kind of bacteria or anything like that on the animal. And then once we do that, we let it drain for a little bit longer, and we roll it over here to our weight scale. So this is where you get what you call your hanging weight or your hog weight. It rolls on this scale right here, and when we roll 1/2 of beef on that right there, it'll come down to a sensor right here, and it'll tell us how much that weighs. You see it says -7, but that's a weight that's teared out because of our trolley weighs 7 pounds. So it weighs 7 pounds, so we have to tear that out. But anyways, it'll come and weigh, and once it weighs, that's what you see on this little board right here, the different weights of halves of animals. So, and if you ever wonder why it says B first and then A, it's because for us in our computer system, left half and right half. So that's the way that we think about it. This right here is technically our left half, so that's the first one that we put in the computer system, and that's our right half. So we would weigh the carcasses, and it goes into our computer system, and it prints out a tag for us. Once it prints out that tag, then we take and we hang that on the carcass, and then it rolls into our chiller.
That's some pretty good butchering right there to get 606, 607.
Yeah. Now you will see, some people will see like a difference right here. So you see this difference, right?
Yeah.
So when they're splitting the animal, for one, it's never going to be perfectly even.
Right.
But then for their other thing, what you'll see a lot of times is if someone wants their organ meats, like their liver, can weigh a lot. You know, you get the whole liver, it can weigh a lot. And then, you know, the tongue, obviously, and the heart and stuff like that. So we take and we'll hang maybe the tongue and the heart on one side of the carcass and the liver on the other. Okay,
yeah.
So
makes sense.
When it hangs on the other side, like especially with the liver, it will weigh a lot more than just the tongue and the heart together. So you'll see a difference sometimes. And some people will be like, why does mine cost more? And we'll say, well, the liver was hanging on your side, you know. So, but that's how that process. If you do a lot of carcasses during the day, what ends up happening is there's a lot of steam that goes into your aging food. What that does is over time that creates a lot of mold.
Yeah.
So what we do is we roll ours into an actual chiller first, and it'll stay there for 24 hours and cool down those carcasses. We roll into our aging cooler with all of our other meat the next day.
That's a big investment, right?
Yes. you know, the building itself wasn't this. I mean, it was a lot of money, but you know, it was like, I don't even know if it was a fifth or sixth of a cost of what the actual coolers and stuff were itself. You know, the coolers.
Is this a chiller?
This is what we would call the chiller, yes sir. Yeah. So we get done with that, we'll roll the parts in. You can see these are just some hogs we've done. Just like I was saying a while ago. So for a hog, for example, we hang all the variety on one side, and here are the tags that we were talking about printing out from the computer. They would hang. These are our USDA stamps. They're a little bit wet. It's hard to make them stick good, obviously. When they get drier, it's a little bit easier to stamp. As you can see, this is the next day. They put all of this thing. Roll these all into the new actual way. We call this our bypass rail, but all of our animals that we have to do, pretty quickly. Like, for example, beef can hang for 2 weeks. Technically, they can hang for longer. But beef, especially beef that have a really good fat cap on them, animals that are very, very fatty, they can hang for a lot longer. So, you know, our beef generally we're going to hang for 12 to 14 days, whoever gets an animal processed with us. But our hogs will hang usually no more than a week. Lamb and sheep and goats and stuff like that, it's going to be the same way. You can usually process them within a few days and kill.
Okay.
You don't want to let them hang too long, especially lamb and sheep, because of the fat content on them. You know, if they don't have a lot of fat cap on them, that's right. You don't want to let them hang too much longer. It's kind of the same thing. You'll have people that do deer. We don't do deer here currently, but you know, if you were to do a deer, you don't want it to hang usually for any more than a week.
Okay.
So, but this is our bypass rail. So, for example, even though that these right here were killed just yesterday, we put them on this rail where we can get to them quicker. These are the first 2 rails that we do. And then all of our beef, our USDA beef for the last 2 rails, and I'll show you those. And then our custom beef, we put separate than our USDA beef. So, but they're not allowed to touch and all kinds of those things.
Yeah.
So. Expected beef, but these are our rails that we use for that. So, you know, it's a little bit of a process when you have USDA facilities, because it, for example, if you were going to cut stuff in your cut room, you wouldn't want to do a custom beef before you do your USDA beef, because you have to clean up everything first.
Right.
So we start out with USDA beef. If we have USDA beef to do that
Makes
day,
sense.
we cut all of those first, and then you can go right into your custom stuff without having to clean up. So it gets kind of tricky sometimes when you do things like that. It's way more easy to clean up beef than it is hogs. Hogs is a lot more of a process. Anytime that you're doing hogs in the facility in our cut room, especially because it's very cold in there. I think it's like 42 or 3 in there.
Yeah.
You know, it's about 36 degrees in here.
It's pretty cold in here.
36 degrees here. We keep it a little bit colder in our chiller to cool down the carcasses. And here it's around what you would have your refrigerator at, 36, 38 degrees.
Okay.
You know, it might get a little, you know, cooler or warmer, just depending on, you know, the moisture content. But then our processing facility, we try to keep it pretty cold in there as well. So the meat stays cold the whole time.
That's good.
And in here, you'll see these bacons and stuff hanging up right here. So these are jowls, these are hog jowls, these are bacons. This is what we do with our sugar cure process. So this is kind of the ending process. So these have already been washed. This is a 2-week process, but these have already been washed. All the sugar cure that was on them. Sugar cure just looks like essentially sugar or salt.
It's brown sugar.
It's not necessarily brown sugar. We use what we call hickory smoked, a hickory smoked seasoning almost, a sugar cure. But we don't actually smoke here. We just sugar cure. So we put that cure on the actual bellies itself, and then it stays. We rub it all over it, and then we vacuum seal it like this right here. So you would see it's vacuum sealed. You know, here's the producer, the person that's getting it. Here's what we call our animal ID number, and then that's how much that it weighs. And then NFS is not for sale. If it is for sale, it actually has a label on it, or it'll say USDA. And so once they put that cure on there, we actually vacuum seal it in these bags, and it sits here for a week in this cure. After a week, we have to come in and we wash them off with cold water and get all that cure off of it. And then after that, we hang it up to dry. And then it hangs here for another week. And then after that, it's sugar cured.
That's quite a process.
Yeah, and it's a really big process for your USDA stuff because you have to keep the amount of cure that you put on all of these. So based off of the weight, there's a certain calculation that we have to do in a formula that we use.
Yeah.
It has to be logged into a logbook. Our USDA inspector inspects that. And so we have to make sure that it's losing a certain amount of water weight, essentially. So
Chemistry,
right? Well, it's never my forte. Especially our beef, after it ages for about 2 weeks, you know, I've done the cut sheet for you usually. It'll hang, and then this is where it comes into what we would call our cut room. Some people call it a processing room or our butcher room, but we just call it a cut room because we have so many different rooms. It makes it a little bit easier. I consider a processing room the whole thing, you know. But it rolls in here. We're rolling in a beef at a time. So, for example, this is Luke. He's our guy that runs our bandsaw. We have guys on the cut table, or we would call the cut table, that debone things. They roll in a half a beef at a time. So he would come in here, pull off stuff off of this half a beef. And this right here is a hoist that brings things. That's called a carcass dropper. So what we'll do here in a little bit is he'll raise this up after he gets done cutting off stuff, and he'll roll that to the end, and he'll lower that chain down with a button. And it helps him get that off. Yeah, get that off. Then obviously he runs stuff across the bandsaw. This is the whole round of the leg here. And this is where you get your sirloins from.
yeah.
This is where they do all the stuff. And when they do that, they cut down stuff and make mistakes. So somebody from the back will come over and get it straight off. Blessed to have a big grinder.
Yeah.
I wish the tube was a little taller, but for the most part, as they go, they'll throw stuff in the grinder, and we grind as we go. You know, a lot of people will want certain percentages out of their ground beef to be maybe hamburger patties or brats or stuff like that. And so what we have to do is when we get somebody who wants a certain percentage, we have to grind it kind of all at once, if that makes sense, and do it. So it makes our process a little bit harder, not terrible, but a little bit harder. But the easiest way to do it is as they cut, they throw stuff in. We try to mix in a certain amount of fat with a certain amount of lean beef to make the grind very, very equal. You know, we try to get an 80-20 blend, but sometimes that's not on us, that's on the producer based off of how their animal looks. You know, sometimes it may be a little bit leaner, sometimes it may be a little bit fattier, but if you run too much fat through your grinder, it'll clog it up. So it's very, very important for us to pull certain things out too. A lot of people, most of the time, they want to know how much meat that they're going to get back, you know, out of a live weight animal. And generally, that's around 35% around for most customers. So live weight, when it's walking around in your pasture, to how much meat are you actually getting back? You know, around 35%.
35%.
For example, like something like that, if it was way too fatty, you could stop up your grinder, you would trim stuff like that, and move on that stuff like that. Someone wanted to keep their fat, obviously that would be different and stuff like that. But you know, you have a difference between kidney fat and then like manufacturing fat. So we make sure we specify that with the butchers, but kidney fat is what, you know, a lot of people call suet, you know, or tallow.
Yeah, tallow.
And so that's become a big popular thing. Your lad was telling me about cuts a while ago.
My wife makes some tallow soap.
Yeah, that's become very popular. Yeah. Soap and candles and all kinds of stuff. People don't use necessarily a lot of back fat for that, what we would call back fat or fat trimming. But the tallow and the kidney fat has become extremely popular. You can't throw kidney fat in the grinder and stop it up.
Oh, wow.
But shrimp fat, obviously you can. That's what you would eat in your actual hamburger. So when someone tells us, hey, we want to save some fat, we always say, make sure you specify which one that you want. Right. We'll have some people that just want to throw trim fat in their deer meat, which I do every year. I get trim fat from us. But you know, if they're wanting to make soap or candles or something like that, we say, well, that you want kidney fat then.
Kidney fat.
So that's how we specify things. And kidney fat will break apart a lot. It'll break apart a lot easier than trim fat will.
Yeah.
So once we do that, it comes over to our packing table and our piston stuffer. That hamburger comes out to our piston stuffer. And then our piston stuffer runs off. We weigh every single bag to
to see if it's a certain amount of weight. Yeah, some picture service will actually, they weigh it for you, but we go through a little bit of extra process here. The faster that they get it, this right here, you know, when you very first start doing this thing, you're kind of trying to be easy, and you'll see when they get this thing packed full, you know, they'll run that stuff out. I mean, it's thousands and thousands of bags a day of, like, let's say if we do 1 pound. So anytime that they look at a cut sheet and it says 2 pound, they're like, you know, because they don't have to run a bunch of 1 pound out. And then we label every single one of them as well. Just like I said, if it's USDA, it'll be weighed, it'll go on the scale. We actually have a computer in here. It goes on the scale. We print out a label that we put on each hamburger bag. If it's custom, which is what it is right now, which I don't know if you can see this, and I'll just show you one. They're peeling it, the stickers. So that's just our logo, and it says not for sale. It has to have not for sale on it for custom beef. Yeah. And for most of probably your customers and homesteaders and things like that, that's what you're gonna see, is that custom label. So we made our own custom label and put it on there. And so that's what you would get. This is what we would use for our one pound. So this is our vacuum sealer. This has been probably the best and biggest, and one of the biggest investments that we made.
That ain't your mama's vacuum sealer.
Yeah, that's not your mama's vacuum sealer. We started out in the very beginning with a very small vacuum sealer, and we learned really quick that in order to be able to get a lot of production out a day, that you have to have a really big vacuum sealer. You know, it doesn't matter how fast that your butchers are or your packers are, if everything bottlenecks.
Where's the bottleneck?
Bottlenecks right here. Yeah. And so, when we very first started out, I was running a bandsaw, and we started kind of getting 3-4 beef done a day in here. And everything was bottlenecking. And so we were wanting to get, you know, 7, 8, 9 beef done a day. And we were like, we're never gonna be able to do that unless we get a bigger vacuum sealer. So we invested in the bigger vacuum sealer. What happens with this is, they can lay bags on this, and they'll pick this up. There's a spring underneath it that rotates it over in the vacuum seal. And while it's vacuum sealer is taking time, they'll go ahead and stack the other side as well. So it just switches back and forth the whole time. So that saves you a lot of time when you're doing vacuum. Keep the process moving. And that's a big thing about this room, is keeping everything flowing. So, you know, if you have a person out, it's a big deal. When people want bacon stuns, it's a big deal because it pulls somebody from either the cook table or the packing table or whatever the case may be to be able to do those things. So, we'll take crates. So we stack our crates up right here. So, for example, this is the guy that has this beef done, and I'll show you this section over here too. So, for example, on our wall we have incoming, working, and completed. So incoming is, they may be cutting a beef up there, and that's incoming. So they may be already cutting on it on the cut table, but obviously you're not done packing it down here. You may eventually get done packing it down here, and they may be cutting on a new beef down there, but the piston stuffer is still running the last beef, for example. So it can get very, very confusing. So we come up in the very beginning with incoming, working, and completed. And once that animal is completely completed, as in like everything is in the system, we move our paper over. We have magnets on the wall. We move it over to completed. And if it's incoming, that may be what the butchers are actually cutting on. And if they're working on packing the last beef or piston stuffer with the hamburger on the last beef, we keep that one right here. And so it keeps our process running smoothly and knowing where everything is at. So we didn't know that in the beginning. You know, we got into this stuff in the very beginning, just kind of, you know, Dad kind of shoots from the hip and stuff. I'm a lot more of a planner like Mom, and Dad kind of, he kicks in the door and just goes. And so he kind of did that in the beginning, and we had to learn the process together of how to get everything to work smooth. But but that's how we do that. And this would be an example of one of our skills that we would use to weigh stuff and print out a label. This is what our printer looks like, which we don't have it in here today, but as far as USDA stuff goes, that prints out stuff. So we have a computer system that we use. She would, for example, like this right here is a skirt steak, but she would type in, she would click on a button on her computer that said skirt steak. Once she clicked on it, she would sit on the scale, it would weight it, it would relay it to our computer system, and then it prints out a label. As soon as it prints out that label, we stick it on the bag and then lay it on our vacuum sealer. Okay. So once they get that stuff done, we rotate them and we put them in these crates. These crates right here they'll actually have tags on them. It's a little tie tag to this right here, and you'll see them in our freezer in just a second. We'll have to move pretty fast in there because it's 0 degrees. But the name of the individual and the ID number will be attached to this crate right here. And then once they get that person completed, they take it all in the freezer once. And then we actually, their cut sheet, we have 2 copies of our cut sheet. And I'll show you that process in a little bit when we go back to the office. But what we do is we bring the original copy, stays with our packers, and we take a copy and we give that to our butchers. Our butchers can throw their copy away, but that original copy stays with this animal essentially the whole time.
Okay.
And so at the very end of the day, that completed section at the end of the wall there, we just run over. We take all those papers and we take them up to our front office, which is to Jennifer, and she starts invoicing all of those. And so at the very bottom of that sheet, it'll say location. So once this person gets done with their beef, or we get done with our beef in the cut room, it'll go into the freezer. We have to put the location of where it's at in the freezer. And so when people come to pick up their meat, Jennifer comes in there.
You get the right meat.
And she gets the right meat. That's right. So for example, this is, if you just look right here, this is Southern Rhone. And so, we don't have to put what's actually inside of the actual crate itself as far as the label goes. A lot of times you'll just see stock bones on there. It's not actually stock bones, but it's USDA. We know that it's USDA certified. And so what that does is that allows our inspector to come in here and be like, hey, I know that this is USDA. Is everything labeled right? Is everything done right? So he's able to do that. If it's custom, you'll just see this right here.
Yeah.
You'll see their name written on the tag, and then obviously their ID number. So that's kind of how we do everything. I wish we had some to show you. We don't have any right now, but when we do hamburger patties, they'll run it out of the piston stuffer into the big tube. And we actually take those tubes and we hang them on this rack right here. And they hang down. And generally we can get about 15, but you obviously can't make them too long because they can't touch the ground. But about 15 pounds or so, and depending on what size the tubes are. We do 3-inch, which are sliders, 4-inch, which is what you would see with the regular hamburger patty, or a 5-inch, which would be almost like a big hamburger steak.
Yeah.
We hang those down and we let them freeze, and then the next day we come in and cut the plastic off of them, and then we actually will cut, and it makes our hamburger patties very symmetrical for the people that want hamburger patties. So that's kind of how that process works. And if you want your stuff boxed, we have to come back in, we take it out of the crates and we box it. So for example, we have to keep it in these crates in order for it to freeze. If we just boxed everything in there, it wouldn't freeze within a day or so. So it has to be in something that has holes in it, that has airflow in it,
Yeah.
in order to be able to freeze. And then once it freezes, then we can go in, and if you want your stuff boxed, we go back in and we actually will box it for you. Perfect example,
Yeah.
right there. So that's what Jennifer's doing right now. She's actually boxing it. Somebody wanted their meat box, so she would come in here and she pulls out all the crates. It's much easier for us to do it in halves. So for example, if we have somebody that has a whole beef and they say, hey, I want it to be boxed into quarters. The biggest advice I can give, your customers is, if you want it boxed into quarters, fill out 2 cut sheets. Fill out one for the left half and fill out one for the right half, even though if it's a whole beef. And the reason why we do that is it's very hard to bring out a whole beef, because this right here is just half a beef, right? Yeah, so this is just half a beef. So you can imagine having all of this right here plus this, and then if it's a really big beef, sometimes you got to use 2 of these right here to pull it out, just for a half. But this is just half a beef, and so you're able to break things down quarterly out of that half a beef instead of bringing the whole beef out of here. Plus, customers are walking through the door wanting stuff or buying meat or trying to get their own services done. Something may go wrong in the cut room, so they come up here.
Yeah.
So a lot can happen in a very short amount of time. So what we do is we tell people, even if it's a whole beef and you want it quartered, fill out 2 cut sheets, left half, right half, even if it's the same cuts, and then we quarter it halves at a time. And that's kind of our process of how we do that. So, and then once it comes up here, or once it's finished in our freezer, they'll bring the cut sheets like I was telling you to Jennifer. And what Jennifer does is she'll take, and this is how she invoices, she'll take, they would bring, for example, a cut sheet up here, and this right here, this cut sheet's been all through this been through everything. It's been through every single room. So, I take and I fill out these cut sheets. I'll turn them into Dad. He makes sure that the people are coming when they're supposed to, and then they'll drop off their animals. And then this cut sheet right here, we put it in a folder. And then every single day, Dad, he'll lay out how many beef that he wants to cut that day. Sometimes we get to all of them, sometimes we don't. But for example, this right here would be how we'd fill it out. We kind of talked about that in the beginning of your video. And how it's filled out, I stamp it with a USDA stamp. And then there'll be a copy behind this, and I'll put a stamp copy on that.
Okay.
And that's the copy stamp. That's the one that our butchers use. They can throw away. They can get hamburger meat on it. That can be meat and fat on it or whatever. It don't matter. They can throw that one away. This is our packer's copy. And what I was telling you is once it gets to that completed station, at the end of the day, they bring all these up here to Jennifer. She looks at, for example, this one's Dobson Farms. She invoices in our computer. She can call and say, hey, your meat's ready, and let's schedule you for a pickup. And so
awesome.
they'll schedule them for a pickup. We write it on our board over there when they're supposed to be coming. If they answered the phone call, if they didn't, if we left them a voicemail, if we didn't, and they show right there when they're supposed to come. So that's Thursday the 5th that they're supposed to be here. And then when
did they drop that animal off? How long?
2 weeks prior for a beef.
Okay.
Yeah, about 2 weeks prior for a beef. The beef hangs generally 12 to 14
And how
days.
far out are you as far as scheduling?
It depends. Sometimes it will come in, clusters, and we're 6 months out, and sometimes we're 2 or 3 months out. So when it gets down to where we're just a month out, we're like, hey, anybody want to come get their beef done? But there are a lot of people that cancel because we know it's hard for producers. You'll see some places that'll be a year and a half out. And so we understand that. And so we try not to ever get that far out because we know it's hard to know that you're going to have an animal a year and a half from now, or even when it's going to weigh. So we try to stay generally within 3 to 6 months, somewhere in that range of getting beef scheduled, for example.
That's pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah. And people will cancel on us, and just like I said, that happens. We have some people, some of our regulars, we have them on the schedule to bring 2 beef every week, for example. And they may have one that they can't get up, or they may have one that maybe is not at the right weight that they want yet. And so I say, hey, I'm only going to bring 1 this week. So, for example, that's one canceled off our schedule. So we have a list that we'll call. Yeah. It's almost like it's not an official list, but it's kind of like in a little black book Dad has. And it's called a quick call list. And he'll call those people and say, hey, we had somebody cancel. You weren't on my official list, but you're on my backup list, and so he calls those people to get beef.
Okay.
So that's how we kind of keep everything rolling, anyways.
That sounds good, man.
So.
Well, I really appreciate Cody Anderson giving us a tour of the meat processing plant here in Hartsville, Tennessee. I love supporting small businesses. Just something about supporting small businesses and your local farmers. I think we all should do that. It just gives me peace of mind to know where our food's coming from. So if you don't mind, give them a call and maybe sign up to have your cow or animal processed there. They also sell meat. So if you're in the market for steaks and pork, lamb, give them a call and do business with them. I hope y'all have enjoyed today's video as much as I have making it. Until next time, I'll catch you later.